Some questions from the audience. I'll kick off with this is to Mike. Is there any consensus of New Testament historians that you do not accept?
That's either from Doug or from Cam.
Dead
I'm
on.
pretty sure.
Dead on.
They always ask me that.
That was brilliant. No, that was good. You must be psychic. That's the only explanation.
That's proof of the miraculous right here in our midst.
You're Jesus.
Are there? Yeah. I think there are consensus, but I'm not. I mean, that's not what this debate's about. So I don't think it's relevant to this case. Now, I will say this: if I disagree with the consensus of scholars on an issue, the onus is on me to give reasons for why I disagree. I can't just wave my hand at them and say they're wrong. I've got to give reasons, to support my case.
There's a follow-up to that. Can you name 3 reasons that the Gospels may not be true?
No, why would I do that? No,
Okay,
this. I know it's Doug and Cam because they like these psychological tactics that are not really aimed at me. They're meant to be aimed at my viewers.
Doug's an assassin.
Yeah.
Doug's an assassin, man.
By the way, they're giving you props for that, by the way. I have been talking to Cam, and he's been talking to Doug, so
yep.
Really good. Wow, I'm impressed. Okay, this actually is a question for Paul. If you had a experience like Paul had walking on the road to Damascus, would you assume that you're hallucinating? And that's from GMD Apologetics.
I would seek. Yes, I would probably assume I'm hallucinating, but I would seek the explanations for what was happening to me, whether there was something going on outside of what was going on. So that's partially why I, mentioned that in Acts, even Acts, talks about how the other people weren't seeing what Paul was seeing. I would be looking for external confirmation. I probably would, if I'm being fair, assume that I was hallucinating first, but I would seek. Again, I think that's the default position in this case. So.
Okay. I have a question when it comes to hallucinations. Mike, you had mentioned something about mass hallucinations, but you are obviously familiar with the story of Our Lady of Fatima and the miracle of the sun, which was considered to be a mass hallucination of some kind. And again, mass hallucination doesn't mean they see exactly maybe the same thing, but they're perceiving something in a way that's similar to what everybody else is seeing. So if 2 people saw Jesus, they may not exactly see him the same way, but they're both experiencing something that they're contributing to be Jesus. So in the Lady of the Fatima, the miracle, like how would you not believe that, but you believe the resurrection stories?
Yeah. So, okay, it's really important to me to answer this carefully because I want to be consistent. Like if I'm going to be rational, I can't just have one set of, views for when I believe Christian claims and a different set when I view claims that I consider not part of my Christian views. You know what I mean? I want to be consistent. So I haven't really researched into Fatima and all that, like whatever happened there. But let's say, hypothetically, we have a crowd of, say, 50 people, and they all say, we saw the same thing. It was visual. It was auditory. It was multimode. It was not. I would say then I don't think it was a hallucination. I think if you have 50 people that all say they saw the same thing, they probably saw it. That's the most reasonable explanation. Now, what could the cause be? Could the cause be some sort of godly spiritual apparition, or could it be some sort of demonic thing? My worldview actually encompasses both of those options. So I think I have options of how to explain it, but I would consider it very seriously if I have the same type of testimonies, multiple testimonies, eyewitness accounts. If later half of them said, "Oh, I think I was just being stirred up. I don't think I really saw anything," I would lower my confidence, But if they all maintained their views, especially under, say, getting fired from their jobs, getting persecuted from their culture, then I would have even more confidence that what they saw was real.
Would you say, though, at most, if you're really looking at it critically, at most what you can say, if you had that many people that believe something, or that many people that claim they saw something, at most, and this goes to the criterion of embarrassment as well, at most with that, all you can get to me, is that these people believe that they saw something. This is why even with the criterion of embarrassment, they are willing to put forth, as Paulogia had mentioned earlier, I've had hypnagogic hallucinations. I've had auditory hallucinations in sleep-deprived type states. Absolutely true statement, right? So the criterion of embarrassment would be, why would I be admitting to those things? Because of the embarrassment factor, although I think that by now people realize that people do experience those things. But wouldn't it be more likely that the all you can get to is that they believed they saw something? How do you get from that belief to the belief that they actually did see what they're purporting to see?
I think it's multiple witnesses reporting the same thing. Then I go, not okay. So I could have one witness who convinces me that they believe they saw something. That doesn't mean it's necessarily true. It depends on the witness, depends on whether I trust them or not, and all that sort of thing, right? But if I have multiple eyewitnesses who are all claiming to have seen the same thing, that's really strong evidence, unless I have maybe a defeater for that, like some reason why they would conspire together to lie about it. Half of them recant later on and change their minds. I mean, like, unless there's some reason, if they maintain consistent testimonies even under pressure, and they've all said they saw the same thing, that seems like really strong evidence to me. This is eyewitness testimony in that sense is pretty strong. Is there something wrong with my reasoning here that you guys can think of?
So, well, Mike, you said you would lower your confidence if they were being persecuted or going to be fired from their job and they did stuff. But what about the opposite? What if there is a community being formed around the people and they're being accepted and affirmed, and they're constantly, every day they're going, and their in-group is saying, yeah, remember when we saw, that particular miracle happened. Is that not equally likely that there's positive reinforcement for the thing that they think they saw? And, how would you know the difference between the two, I guess?
No, I think that's a good point. If there's positive reinforcement, then a person has actually reason to continue. If, say, it was a fabrication or a lie, they have a reason to continue in it because they're getting such great benefits of it. But we actually have a lot of examples of this where people, even with the positive reinforcement, they later recant. So like the whole, I think it was Heaven is for Real, that book, some little kid supposedly had a vision. His dad like stirred him up. As he got older, even though he was famous for it and they made a lot of money on it, he was like, I didn't have that vision. That was not true. And he just came out and told the truth. It messed his family up. I mean, here's criterion of embarrassment, right? Obviously the vision didn't happen. This guy's not going to throw his whole family under the bus, very likely, in order just to tell everybody it's not true. There's these strong motives people have, like the Book of Mormon, for instance. It's pretty obvious to me that Joseph Smith conspired together with other people to try to bolster his lies about the Book of Mormon. But the majority of the people who were his witnesses ended up apostatizing and leaving the church. So like if we had, say, even one early church account, about where Paul's like saying, Peter, the apostate Peter, after seeing Jesus, he still rejected him. Oh, what a fool. God deliver unto him what he deserves. Like if we had that, I'd be like, whoa, that's a serious problem.
It is interesting to note, though, none of those apostates, when they left the church, none of them actually said that Joseph Smith was lying, just as a side note. Which was interesting. I mean, so they apostatized, yes.
I've heard that. Yeah. And I know you were former Mormon, so you're familiar with this stuff.
Right, yeah. So I'm familiar with that. So, yeah. But I mean, yes, they did apostatize, but it is true that none of them did. Now, I have no say whether...
They did join other beliefs that disagree with Mormonism, though.
Right. No, that's true. Yeah, and I don't believe that...
They just didn't openly say, I didn't see.
I don't know whether he believes he saw what he saw, right? That's the difference, I have no idea whether he believed. I mean, that he actually saw something, but I think that maybe he believes he saw something. There's a difference. But let's read the super chat.
But at least it casts doubt on it, right?
Again, I think it only gets you that the person believes something. It doesn't really get you to believe that what they believe is actually exactly what happened. Sabaria, $5. Props to Tim O'Neill, atheist guest who agrees in Jesus' existence in history, and so a declaration that burden should be against the resurrection. Go Rams. Yeah, okay. I like Tim O'Neill.
Go Rams. Again,
I'm not involved in that mythicism back and forth. I have no dog in the fight. I think Jesus existed. I don't care one way or another. Whatever. Jamie Sislo, $5. Asking us to ask ourselves a question is by definition being skeptical. Why did you ask us to park it?
I think that was to you, Mike.
I'm not sure.
Could you explain that question to me?
I think he's asking.
I don't think either of us asked the audience to park their skepticism.
No, he did. He did. Mike did. He said, "Park your skepticism for just a
At the
second."
beginning.
And I can't remember what the point was, but
don't
it was
know
probably it was a facetious.
Oh yeah. My concern is that everything I say can be dismissed merely by nature of me doing apologetics.
Gotcha.
And that, to me,
That's fair.
doesn't really help us think about people's arguments. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get you. Seeker $5. This may be the reason Christians mistrust the peer review process. Their own version is extremely unreliable heresy. By the way, do you adhere to modern science? I mean, you're not a young Earth creationist, all that. You are somebody who accepts evolution and stuff like that, right?
I don't believe in common descent. I don't have a problem with speciation or flu vaccines or any of that stuff. I don't know. I don't have a position on the age of the Earth. I feel like some days I'm old Earth and some days I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I also don't debate those issues, and I don't do much on them in my online ministry because I feel like I don't know it well enough to stand up and proclaim, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
No, that's fair.
So yeah, but no, I don't
Bo-
believe evolution. I don't think common descent has been demonstrated. And I think abiogenesis is impossible, or I should say, very nearly impossible.
There's a bigger question though.
Well, how-
Can a dog ever become a non-dog?
Sure, why not?
Because that would invalidate
Cool.
evolution.
It was.
Yeah,
that was just-
we'll
that was
have a
just me
talk
joking,
on that
Mike.
one day.
It was just a joke.
Yeah, I mean, I believe in incremental changes over time. I just think that they probably have boundaries. But again, I don't. That's not something I want to debate. It's not something that
Right,
I
right.
stand on the way I
another time.
stand on.
That was an old Kent Hovind
the gospel.
reference. He's famous for that question on here.
Dogs don't produce non-dogs. No
Yep.
kidding. Bohobo, 20 DKK. 4 different versions of the resurrection. Why? I guess that's probably to you.
I like that. Okay, so N.T. Wright did a survey of the actual words used in the appearance accounts in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And on one side, a skeptic will often say, these are contradictory accounts. You know, was it one woman or more than one woman? Who came to the tomb? What time of day was it? That kind of thing. But from the historian's perspective, like you're looking at witness testimony or purported testimony from witnesses, what you have is the differences in the account really strengthen and bolster the idea that these are different traditions. In other words, there's multiple attestation for the resurrection appearances because they don't repeat word for word. They're not really one source. They're 4 different sources, which really strengthens the case for the appearances.
But there's a lot of discrepancies between all 4 of the attestations, are there not?
There's discrepancies in the sense that there's differences. I don't think there's any contradictions, but I think that's a separate issue. Let's suppose that they're totally contradictory on the issues of how many women went to the tomb. Yet the fact that they would disagree then and be contradictory is just more evidence that this was a strong tradition, original, source that these are all multiply attesting to. There really were women that went to the tomb. There really were multiple appearances of Jesus. And then the stories of those appearances, if you have a really liberal view, which I don't, they adapted over time, but that still doesn't get you away from the appearances, right? We're saying there's a historical core, and the differences strengthen that. If you have eyewitness testimony where everybody repeats word for word the same thing, you just think, they all colluded. We've got one source. You have variety within the eyewitnesses. We have multiple sources.
The same event, the same account. I mean, I think there's some pretty significant differences, but we got to move on here. Serbia, $10. As the term gospel relates to Christianity teaching, by definition, can the Quran, Torah, or Kabbalah be accounted for since it does not teach Christianity, or are they gospels different despite the definition? Are they gospels despite the definition? So asking is
could you read that again? I somehow just got totally lost in there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's hard translating him because so I'm going to do the best I can. As the term gospel relates to Christianity teaching by definition, can Quran, Torah, or Kabbalah be accounted for since it does not teach Christianity, or are the gospels are they gospels despite the definition?
So when we say gospel, we don't exclude the Torah from that. I mean, it's not. Okay, the Torah is the 5 books of Moses, right?
Right.
So that's included within Christianity. The Quran will actually teach against Christianity, and specifically that God doesn't have a son and he hasn't begotten